They called it the Resolute, not out of respect, but mockery. The alien fleets had laughed when Earth first sent the ship into space. Its hull was patched with mismatched alloys, its weapons seemed outdated, and its engines sputtered against the sleek propulsion systems of the Targan Empire. Among the galactic nations, humans were known as latecomers, scavengers who stitched together technology they barely understood. When Earth requested a seat in the Council of Systems, the Targan Admiral Vexar Thal had only sneered. "Let them prove their worth," he had said, voice carrying through the grand chamber. "Send their little Resolute against our vanguard. It will make fine target practice." Earth accepted the challenge, not because they thought they could win, but because they had no choice. The Targans controlled the trade routes that Earth desperately needed. Without access, humanity would wither in isolation. So the call went out across the planet. Volunteers, engineers, and soldiers rushed to the hidden shipyards near Titan. Over months of sleepless nights and desperate innovation, they turned a rusting relic into humanity's last hope. Commander Elias Vorn stood on the command deck, staring at the swirling void beyond the viewport. His uniform clung to his lean frame, its crisp lines hiding the exhaustion in his eyes. Around him, the crew moved with purpose, tight-lipped, eyes hard with determination. "Status, Lieutenant Cade?" Vorn asked, without turning. Lieutenant Rika Cade's fingers danced over the holographic controls. Her dark hair clung to her sweat-dampened forehead as she scanned the data streaming in from their long-range sensors. "The Targan fleet's holding position at Vector Alpha 9, she reported. 20 warships, including 2 dreadnoughts. Vorn exhaled through his nose. 20 ships against their 1. It wasn't a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. "Time until engagement?" 6 minutes at current trajectory. He nodded and glanced toward the communications officer, Sergeant Malik. "Any response to our hails?" Malik shook his head. "They're ignoring us, sir. Guess they're waiting for the fireworks." A murmur of bitter laughter rippled through the bridge crew. The aliens had sent no formal terms, no demand for surrender. This wasn't war, it was entertainment. But Earth had learned to survive against impossible odds. When the skies had turned black with famine, they'd clawed their way back from starvation. When plagues swept through cities, they found cures. When climate wars tore nations apart, they rebuilt stronger. Humanity didn't quit. Not now. Not ever. Vorn's gaze dropped to the small photo taped beside his console. His wife and daughter, smiling beneath a summer sun that seemed like a distant dream. He clenched his jaw. He would not fail them. "Cade, activate the catalyst core," he ordered. A hush fell over the bridge. Every crew member tensed. Activating the core meant one thing. They were going all in. No retreat. No surrender. "Are you sure, sir?" Cade's voice was low. Everyone knew the core had never been tested in real combat. "I'm sure," Vorn said. Cade's fingers hovered for a moment, then pressed the sequence. Deep within the ship, something roared to life. The deck vibrated beneath their feet as unseen energy coursed through the hull. Systems spiked, lights flickered, and every sensor flared red as the Resolute woke up. Vorn tapped the intercom. "All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for imminent combat. We face an enemy that thinks we are weak. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. No more jokes, no more mockery. We fight for Earth, for our families, and for our future. Vincimus aut morimur. We conquer or we die." The crew answered with a shout that echoed through every corridor. On the viewport, the Targan fleet grew larger, sleek vessels of silver and black, bristling with plasma cannons and torpedoes. The largest dreadnought, Vexaris, led the charge, its prow glowing with the crimson light of its annihilation array. "They're locking weapons," Cade shouted. "Evasive maneuvers! Vorn barked. Thrusters flared as the Resolute twisted aside, just as the first plasma bolts streaked past. The hull shuddered from the shockwaves, but the ship held together. "Return fire!" The main cannons boomed, but the alien shields absorbed the blasts without flinching. Laughter echoed over the comms, Targan voices jeering as human weapons failed to penetrate their defenses. "They're closing fast," Malik warned. Vorn's pulse hammered. They had one shot at this. If the catalyst core failed... No, he couldn't think that way. "Cade, initiate catalyst overdrive." "Sir, that'll push the reactor beyond safe limits." "Do it!" Cade's hands flew across the console. Deep within the ship, the catalyst core screamed as it surged beyond its design limits. The hull groaned, but then... power. Pure, blinding energy flooded the ship. The weapons console flared to life with new targeting options that hadn't existed seconds before. Experimental pulse cannons, quantum torpedoes, and phase disruptors, systems humanity had never dared to test outside a lab, now hummed with lethal potential. Vorn's lips curled into a grim smile. Fire everything. The Resolute unleashed hell. Blue-white beams sliced through space, bypassing shields as though they were smoke. The nearest Targan cruiser exploded in a flash of shattered metal and vaporized flesh. Torpedoes streaked into the fleet, detonating in blossoms of fire that sent shockwaves cascading through their formation. The laughter on the comms vanished, replaced by panicked shouts in alien tongues. "2 ships down! No, 3! Cade shouted. The Targans scrambled to return fire, but the Resolute danced through their barrage with impossible speed. Plasma bolts skimmed the hull, but the ship's reinforced armor held. Vorn's fingers tightened around the armrests of his chair. They weren't done yet. "Target the dreadnought Vexaris! Maximum yield!" The ship's pulse cannons charged, drawing from the overdriven core until their barrels glowed white-hot. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems pushed past safety limits. Sparks rained from overloaded circuits, and then the cannons fired. A lance of pure destruction lanced across space, slamming into the Vexaris with the force of a dying star. Metal melted, shields collapsed. The dreadnought's armor crumpled like paper before its core detonated in a blinding fireball that consumed everything nearby. Silence fell over the battlefield. Smoke and debris drifted through the void, where once an invincible fleet had stood. Vorn exhaled slowly. "Status?" Cade's voice was hoarse. "All enemy ships destroyed, sir. We did it." The crew erupted in cheers, but Vorn merely stared at the distant stars. Victory had come at a cost. Systems fried, hull damaged, the catalyst core now a ticking time bomb. They'd bought humanity a future, but the war was far from over. Because somewhere out there, the rest of the Targan Empire was waiting, and they wouldn't underestimate Earth again. Vorn leaned forward, eyes hard with determination. "Plot a course home. This was just the beginning." The fires still burned within the Resolute's engine core. Systems sputtered, conduits sparked, and acrid smoke clung to the air like a reminder of how close they had come to destruction. But against all odds, they had survived. Outside the viewport, debris from the Targan fleet drifted like shattered gravestones. Commander Elias Vorn leaned against the central console, hands gripping the edges so tightly his knuckles went white. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only exhaustion in its wake. Yet his mind refused to rest. This victory, if it could be called that, wasn't the end. The Targan Empire would not forgive this humiliation. "Damage report," he ordered, his voice rough from smoke and strain. Lieutenant Rika Cade coughed into her sleeve before responding. "Hull integrity at 62%. Weapons systems are fried. Overdrive pushed the pulse cannons beyond limit. Quantum torpedoes depleted, shields holding at 30%. But the catalyst core is unstable. If we push it again, we risk a full reactor meltdown. Vorn absorbed the news with a grim nod. It was better than he'd expected. Engines? Sublight propulsion is functional, but FTL drives are offline. We're dead in the water until engineering can reroute power. Vorn turned to the engineering officer, Lieutenant Commander Harris Doyle, whose soot-streaked face spoke of the chaos below decks. Doyle wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. I can get us moving again, Commander, but the catalyst core's shot. Too much strain. We might stabilize it for basic power, but any more combat... Doyle shook his head. We won't survive another engagement. The air seemed heavier in the silence that followed. They had escaped one nightmare, only to drift into another. Understood, Vorn said. Do what you can. We need to get home. Doyle saluted and hurried from the bridge, leaving Vorn to face the crew's anxious eyes. They all knew the truth. The Targans would come for them, not just to destroy the Resolute, but to make an example of Earth. Vorn pressed the intercom button. His voice echoed through every corridor. This is Commander Vorn. We've won a battle today that no one thought possible. Each of you stood against impossible odds and proved that humanity will not be broken. But our mission isn't over. The Targans will return, stronger than before. We must bring word to Earth and prepare for what comes next. Hold fast. We are not defeated. Vorn out. He released the button and let out a slow breath, aware of the weight pressing against his chest. Victory always came with a cost. Lieutenant Cade, he said, scan for any Targan survivors or distress beacons. I don't want them sending a signal before we get out of here. Yes, sir. Cade's hands moved swiftly over the controls, her eyes scanning the flickering data feeds. A minute passed, then another, her brow furrowed. Commander, I'm detecting faint life signs from the wreckage of the dreadnought Vixaris. Vorn's head snapped toward her. Survivors? Possibly. The readings are weak. Could be trapped crew members in a sealed compartment. There's also an intact data core broadcasting a low-power distress pulse. The signal isn't strong enough to reach the nearest Targan fleet, but if they get closer... Vorn's mind raced. A distress beacon would bring the Targans down on them like vultures. But the data core, the secrets inside, could change the tide of the entire war. Weapon specifications, fleet deployments, vulnerabilities. The information was too valuable to ignore. Commander, we can't risk it, Malik warned from the comm station. If the Targans find us here... I know the risks, Vorn cut him off. But that data could save Earth. We'll launch a retrieval team, prep Shuttle Alpha 1 and get a security team ready. Cade hesitated. And the survivors? Vorn's eyes narrowed as he weighed the consequences. Taking prisoners would slow them down, and the Targans would show no mercy if the roles were reversed. But leaving them to die... Rescue any survivors you find. But the data core is the priority. Move fast. Within minutes, the shuttle bay echoed with the hum of engines. Alpha 1, a sleek gunship retrofitted from scavenged alien tech, hovered above the deck as its crew boarded. Clad in armored exosuits, their visors gleamed with the blue glow of combat HUDs. Among them was Lieutenant Cade, having volunteered to lead the mission despite Vorn's protests. Stay sharp, Lieutenant, Vorn said over the comms as she secured her harness. Don't worry, Commander. I'll bring back your prize. With a hiss of hydraulics, the shuttle launched into the void, weaving through drifting debris toward the shattered remains of the Vexaris. Fires still flickered within the torn hull as vents expelled atmosphere into space. The ship had been split nearly in half by the Resolute's final salvo, yet some parts remained intact, like the black heart of a beast refusing to die. Approaching the wreckage, Cade reported. Minimal power signatures. No defensive systems detected. Docking at the aft maintenance bay. The shuttle latched onto the hull with a dull clang. Inside, the airlock cycled open, revealing a corridor bathed in flickering red light. Twisted metal and scorched walls bore witness to the ship's final moments. "Keep your weapons ready," Cade ordered as she stepped into the corridor, plasma rifle raised. "We don't know what's waiting for us." Her boots echoed against the deck as they advanced. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across the walls. Somewhere deep within the wreckage, faint hissing sounds echoed. Coolant leaks or escaping air, or something else. "This way," Cade said, consulting her scanner. "The data core should be 3 decks down in the central archives." Moving cautiously, the team descended through the wreckage, navigating collapsed bulkheads and sparking conduits. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of burnt wiring and ozone. "We're close," Cade whispered. Rounding a corner, they entered a chamber lined with crystalline storage nodes, alien technology that glimmered faintly even in near darkness. At the center stood the data core, a black sphere pulsing with faint blue light. "Got it." Cade motioned to the tech specialist, who moved forward and began connecting a portable interface. Then the shadows moved. Cade spun around as a figure lunged from the darkness. Targan soldier, bloodied but still lethal. Its blade caught the light as it slashed toward her throat. Cade twisted aside, the blade slicing through the air inches from her visor. She raised her plasma rifle and fired. The blast caught the Targan soldier in the chest, hurling him backward into the wall. His armor sizzled as molten metal dripped onto the floor. But before she could catch her breath, more shadows stirred in the corridor beyond. "Contact! Multiple hostiles!" she shouted into the comm. The team fell into formation as Targan warriors emerged from the darkness. 6, their crimson eyes gleaming with hatred. Their armor, scarred and scorched, bore the marks of the dreadnought's destruction, yet they moved with deadly precision. "Hold them off," Cade ordered. "We need that data core." Blaster fire erupted in the confined space. Blue plasma bolts streaked through the air, striking armor and flesh with searing force. The Targans returned fire with pulse rifles, their shots tearing through walls and consoles. Sparks and debris rained down as the chamber shook from the exchange. "Almost there!" the tech specialist shouted, frantically tapping at the portable interface. "Data extraction at 70%! Hold them back!" Cade dropped to one knee, firing in controlled bursts. Her shots found their marks, but the Targans pressed forward relentlessly. One warrior lunged into melee range, his blade flashing toward her throat. She parried with the stock of her rifle and drove her elbow into his face, sending him sprawling. Another came at her from the side, but a blast from her teammate's weapon punched through his skull. 85%, the tech called out. Another Targan surged forward, faster, stronger. His armor gleamed with officer insignia, and his eyes burned with fury. Cade barely raised her rifle in time. The alien's blade sheared through the barrel of her weapon, sparks flying as the severed metal clattered to the floor. Cade stumbled back, reaching for her sidearm, but the Targan was too fast. He seized her by the throat, lifting her off the ground with ease. Her helmet's display flickered with warnings as oxygen levels dropped. Cade struggled against the iron grip, kicking and clawing, but the alien's strength was overwhelming. "Extraction complete," the tech shouted. Cade's vision blurred. She saw the tech yank the portable drive from the interface, securing humanity's prize. But the officer holding her sneered through sharp teeth, his grip tightening. "You dare defy the Targan Empire?" he growled in accented standard. "I'll send your corpse back to your world as a warning." Cade's fingers scrabbled against her belt, finding the hilt of her combat knife. With the last of her strength, she drove the blade into the alien's neck. The Targan roared in agony, his grip loosening just enough for her to break free. She hit the ground hard, gasping for air, then snatched her sidearm and fired point blank. The alien's skull snapped back as blue plasma punched through his head, and he collapsed in a smoking heap. "Fall back! Move!" Cade shouted, her voice hoarse. The team scrambled back toward the airlock as more Targans poured into the corridor. Plasma fire chased them through the wreckage, striking walls and sending molten shrapnel into the air. Cade fired over her shoulder as she ran, taking down another warrior before his shot could catch her tech specialist. "Almost there. Airlock in sight." A pulse blast struck one of her soldiers square in the back. He dropped without a sound, smoke rising from the hole in his armor. "Keep moving," Cade yelled, dragging the tech forward as debris rained from the ceiling. The corridor trembled. Secondary explosions were rippling through the wreck, tearing the ship apart. They reached the airlock just as another Targan appeared from the side passage, raising his rifle. Cade spun and fired first. The plasma bolt punched through the alien's chest, but momentum carried his shot wild. The pulse blast seared across Cade's side, and she cried out as pain flared through her ribs. "Lieutenant!" the tech shouted, catching her before she fell. "Get inside!" she gasped, forcing herself forward. Her side burned with every step, but she stumbled into the airlock as alarms blared through the wreckage. "Seal it!" she ordered. The airlock doors slammed shut just as the corridor outside collapsed in a cascade of metal and fire. "Alpha 1, we're clear! Get us out of here!" Cade shouted into her comm. "Copy that. Initiating detachment sequence." The shuttle's engines roared as it broke free from the wreckage, accelerating through the debris field. Shockwaves from the dreadnought's final collapse rattled the hull, but the pilot kept steady. "Brace for jump! We're getting the hell out of here!" The stars outside blurred as the shuttle accelerated toward the Resolute, slipping free of the battlefield's deadly grasp. Cade slumped against the bulkhead, gasping for breath as adrenaline faded into exhaustion. Her side burned fiercely, but she pressed a gloved hand to the wound, gritting her teeth against the pain. "Status on the data core?" she managed. The tech clutched the portable drive tightly, his face pale but determined. "Safe and intact. We've got it, Lieutenant. Everything the Targans had. Ship schematics, fleet movements, even classified comm protocols. This could change everything." Cade exhaled slowly, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. They had what they needed. Proof that humanity could not only survive this war, but win it. "Good. That's good," she murmured, closing her eyes against the pain as the hum of the shuttle's engines carried them home. The Resolute's docking bay shuddered as the shuttle touched down with a metallic hiss. The moment the hatch opened, medics rushed forward, their boots clanging against the steel deck. Lieutenant Reka Cade staggered down the ramp, leaning against the tech specialist for support, her side burning with every breath. Blood seeped through the fabric of her uniform, but she waved off the nearest medic. "Later," she rasped. "Get this to the commander first." The tech clutched the portable drive tightly and nodded before sprinting towards the bridge. Cade's legs gave out as adrenaline faded. She collapsed onto one knee, gasping for air. "Lieutenant, you're losing blood," a medic began, but she cut him off. "Patch it up. Quickly." She clenched her jaw as the medic applied biofoam to the plasma burn. The chemical hissed as it sealed her wound, numbing the pain but leaving a dull ache beneath her ribs. The bandages came next, tight, efficient, and far from comfortable. "Good enough," she muttered. Ignoring the medic's protests, she pushed herself to her feet and headed for the bridge. Commander Elias Vorn stood at the central console, eyes fixed on the tactical display as systems flickered back online one by one. The ship still bore the scars of battle: damaged engines, compromised shields, and fried weapons systems. But against all odds, they had survived. When the tech specialist rushed onto the bridge, clutching the portable drive like a sacred relic, Vorn turned sharply. "Do you have it?" "Yes, sir. Full extraction successful." The tech handed over the drive with trembling hands. Vorn took it carefully, as though holding Earth's future in his palm. Without hesitation, he inserted the drive into the main console. The holographic display flared to life, casting flickering blue light across the bridge. Lines of alien script scrolled past, interspersed with schematics of Targan warships, troop deployments, and classified communications protocols. A ripple of awe spread through the crew. Even Malik, usually quick with a sarcastic remark, could only whisper, "Holy hell!" Vorn's eyes narrowed as he scanned the data. Weapon schematics showed weaknesses previously unknown: shield modulation frequencies, structural vulnerabilities, power relay hubs. Fleet formations, supply lines, and patrol routes painted a picture of an empire confident in its invincibility and blind to its flaws. "Lieutenant Cade?" he asked without looking up. "Here, sir." He turned. Her uniform was scorched, bloodied, but her eyes burned with determination. "Report." "Targan survivors tried to stop us. We lost one of our own, but we secured the data core. The wreck collapsed before we could search for additional survivors." Vorn studied her for a moment, his gaze softening slightly. "You did well, Lieutenant. Get some rest. You've earned it." "Respectfully, sir, I'd rather see what we risked our lives for." Vorn allowed a faint smile before turning back to the data. With a few swift commands, he isolated the most critical files: a comprehensive list of Targan fleet deployments, encrypted orders from High Command, and a classified directive labeled Operation Dominion. "This is it," he murmured. "Proof of their invasion plans. They're preparing a full-scale assault on Earth and its colonies." Gasps echoed across the bridge. "How soon?" Malik asked. Vorn scanned the encrypted timestamps. "Less than 3 months, and Earth has no idea what's coming." Silence fell. The weight of that truth pressed against every chest. Vorn's fingers tightened around the console's edge. "Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. We need to deliver this data before it's too late." "FTL drive's still down, sir," Doyle reminded him over comms. "I'm doing what I can, but then do it faster." "Yes, sir." Vorn exhaled slowly. Even at sublight speeds, they could cover the distance. But every hour lost brought the Targan fleets closer. "Commander," Cade's voice cut through the tension as she pointed to the tactical display. "Incoming signal. Unidentified vessel approaching at high velocity." Vorn's pulse spiked. "Targan?" "Unknown. Hold on, I'm decrypting. It's human, sir." A ripple of confusion passed through the crew. "Human? Out here?" Malik asked. "Patch them through," Vorn ordered. The comms crackled with static before a voice emerged, female, urgent, and strained. "This is Captain Elena Saros of the Argent Dawn. We're a covert reconnaissance vessel from Earth's Defense Command. Your transponder identifies you as the ESS Resolute. Confirm your status. Are you carrying classified alien data?" Vorn's eyes narrowed. "This is Commander Elias Vorn of the Resolute. We have secured critical intelligence regarding an imminent Targan invasion. We are en route to Earth to deliver this information. Identify your mission, Argent Dawn." Static crackled. Then Saros replied, her tone sharp with urgency. "Commander, you must change course immediately. The Targans have deployed hunter-killer squads to intercept you. They know you have the data. We've been tracking their pursuit since the battle. You won't make it to Earth unless you evade now." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Commander," Cade said quietly, "if they're tracking us, Earth is in danger too. We could lead them right to our homeworld." Vorn's mind raced. Delivering the data to Earth was their priority. But if the Targans intercepted them first? Captain Saros, what do you propose? Our ship is faster and equipped with stealth technology. Transfer the data to us, and we'll deliver it to Earth while you lead the Targans away. Vorn hesitated. Trusting another vessel with Earth's last hope was a risk he hadn't planned for. But time was against them. The longer they waited, the closer the enemy came. Beside him, Cade stepped forward, her voice low but firm. Sir, we've come too far to lose this chance. But if we're captured, Earth loses everything. We have to trust them. Vorn's jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed against handing over the data, but logic demanded otherwise. Prepare the data transfer, he ordered. Yes, sir. Cade began the upload, her fingers moving swiftly as encrypted files streamed toward the Argent Dawn. Transfer at 70%, she reported, eyes flicking to the sensor screen. Wait, multiple Targan vessels inbound, 2 ships closing fast. Vorn spun toward Malik. ETA? Less than 5 minutes. They're armed and ready for blood. Vorn's heart pounded. Cade, status on the transfer? 85%. 90. The deck trembled as the Resolute's damaged engines pushed toward their limits. Come on, Vorn muttered. 98. Transfer complete. Argent Dawn, do you have the data? Vorn barked. Confirmed, Resolute. We have it. Breaking contact. Good luck. The transmission cut out, and the reconnaissance ship vanished into the void, its stealth systems engaging instantly. Enemy ships entering firing range, Malik shouted. Vorn's eyes burned with resolve. The mission was complete, but their own fight was just beginning. All hands, battle stations, he ordered. The battered Resolute turned to face its pursuers as plasma fire lit the darkness once more. The Resolute shuddered as plasma blasts slammed into its damaged hull, sending shockwaves through every corridor. Alarms blared, casting the bridge in flashing red light. Commander Elias Vorn gripped the console to steady himself. His gaze locked on the tactical display. 2 Targan warships closed in fast, sleek predators hunting wounded prey. Shields at 20% and falling, Lieutenant Reka Cade shouted over the chaos. Her fingers flew across the controls, rerouting what little power they had left into defensive systems. Sparks rained from overhead conduits, and acrid smoke thickened the air. Return fire, Vorn barked. Sir, our pulse cannons are offline. Quantum torpedoes depleted, Malik shouted from the weapons console, frustration etched on his face. Vorn's mind raced. They were outgunned, outmatched, and barely holding together after the last battle. With no chance of victory, their only hope was survival. But retreat meant leading the Targans straight to Earth. That could not happen. Evasive maneuvers! Bring us around! Make them chase us away from Earth's trajectory! The Resolute twisted through space, engines groaning under the strain. Plasma blasts streaked past, some scoring direct hits that sent tremors through the deck. Structural integrity dropped with each impact, warning sirens wailing like screams. Enemy ships closing to boarding range, Cade warned. Vorn's pulse spiked. If the Targans boarded, there would be no escape. Prepare countermeasures. Commander, Malik shouted, cutting him off. Incoming transmission, open frequency. On screen, Vorn ordered. The main viewport flickered, revealing the snarling visage of a Targan captain. His crimson eyes glowed with malice beneath the black ridges of his brow, and jagged scars marked his slate-gray skin. Human vessel, this is Captain Zorak Mal of the Targan Hunter Fleet. Your defiance ends here. His voice was a guttural growl, thick with contempt. Surrender, and I may grant your crew a swift death. Resist, and I will burn your world to ashes. Vorn stepped forward, eyes hard with defiance. You've already lost. The data you sought is beyond your reach. Earth knows your plans, and we will be ready. Zorak's lips peeled back in a sneer. It won't matter. We will break your world piece by piece until there is nothing left but dust and echoes. The transmission cut off. Plasma cannons charged on the enemy ships, their barrels glowing with lethal energy. "Brace for impact!" Cade shouted. The first salvo hit hard. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and the deck lurched violently. Crew members were thrown from their stations as emergency lights flickered. "Shields down! Hull breaches on decks 4, 6, and 9, Malik reported, his voice strained. Vorn clenched his fists. They had to buy time. Every second counted. "Cade, can we reboot the catalyst core?" Her fingers hesitated over the controls. "Sir, if we push it now, the reactor could—" "No choice," Vorn cut her off. "Do it." Cade swallowed hard and initiated the sequence. Deep within the ship, the dormant core groaned to life. Systems flickered as energy surged through damaged conduits. Warning lights flashed red, but power readings spiked across the board. "Catalyst core online at 50%, 60, 70. The ship shuddered violently as another barrage hit. Sparks rained down, and acrid smoke billowed from the walls. The overhead lights flickered, casting shadows across the bridge. 80%! Reactor temperature rising, approaching critical threshold! Vorn gripped the console. "Malik, target their lead ship. Maximum yield." "Yes, sir!" Malik's fingers flew over the controls as weapons systems powered up with a low, throbbing hum. The pulse cannons, overcharged beyond their limits, glowed white-hot as targeting locks fell into place. Firing, the Resolute unleashed a blinding barrage of plasma fire, each shot tearing through space with lethal force. The lead Targan ship, sleek and predatory, took the brunt of the assault. Its shields flared, then shattered as the pulse cannons punched through its armor. Explosions blossomed along its hull, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The ship lurched, its engines sputtering as secondary detonations rocked its core. "Direct hit! They're losing power!" Cade shouted. The second Targan vessel swerved to flank them, plasma cannons charging for a final blow. "Evasive maneuvers, now!" Vorn yelled. The Resolute twisted aside as plasma bolts streaked past, but one shot clipped the starboard engine. The ship bucked violently, and the lights flickered as systems faltered. "Engine 1 offline. Structural integrity critical," Malik warned. Vorn's mind spun through options. They couldn't withstand another barrage, but they could still buy time. "Cade, overload the catalyst core." Her eyes widened. "Sir, that'll destroy the ship." "I know." His voice was calm, resolute. "Set a collision course for the lead Targan vessel. We're taking them with us." The crew stared at him in stunned silence. "We've done our duty," Vorn said. "Earth will survive because of us. Now let's make sure the Targans never forget the price of their arrogance." Cade swallowed hard, then nodded. Her hands moved swiftly, locking in the final sequence. Warning klaxons howled as the reactor approached critical mass. "Collision course locked. 30 seconds to impact." The Targan ships scrambled to evade, but the Resolute surged forward, engines burning at full thrust. Plasma fire battered its hull, but nothing could stop its final charge. 15 seconds. Vorn stepped forward, gripping the console with both hands. His gaze never wavered from the viewport, where the enemy loomed closer with each passing second. "This is for Earth," he whispered. 5 seconds. Before the final moment, a flash of movement appeared on the tactical display. "Commander, Argent Dawn inbound," Cade shouted. The stealth ship decloaked behind the second Targan vessel and fired a precision strike straight into its engines. The Targan ship bucked violently as explosions ripped through its hull. Plasma vents erupted in gouts of flame, and its power core overloaded. detonating in a blinding flash that consumed the ship in seconds. Impact in 3, 2... Suddenly the comms flared to life. "Resolute, break off, now!" Captain Saros shouted. Vorn slammed his fist onto the console, aborting the collision sequence with milliseconds to spare. The catalyst core's overload cascade halted, though sparks flew as systems strained to stabilize. The Resolute swerved past the remaining Targon vessel, missing it by mere meters as flames and debris streaked across the hull. "Enemy flagship firing!" Malik shouted. But before the shot could land, the Argent Dawn fired again, twin pulse cannons striking the weakened Targon vessel dead on. Armor plates melted and buckled as the ship twisted violently, its engines rupturing in a chain reaction that engulfed it in fire and shrapnel. Silence fell across the battlefield. Only drifting debris remained where the Targon hunters had stood. Vorn staggered back from the console, heart hammering in his chest. Sweat clung to his brow, and the weight of exhaustion pressed down like lead. But they were alive. Somehow, against all odds, they had survived. The comms crackled. "Argent Dawn to Resolute. Looks like we made it in time," Captain Saros said, her voice calm but heavy with the echoes of battle. Vorn exhaled slowly. "You saved us. We owe you our lives." "And Earth owes you its future," Saros replied. "Thanks to your sacrifice, humanity has a fighting chance." Vorn looked around the battered bridge, the crew exhausted but standing tall. Despite everything, they had endured. And though the war was far from over, this battle would be remembered as the day humanity proved it would never bow. "Set course for Earth," Vorn ordered softly. "Let's go home." As the battered Resolute limped toward distant stars, its crew stood a little taller, because they knew this was only the beginning. And next time, humanity would be ready.